hit it decently there. Powering out, I knew I was doing okay. Tried to get on the gas as early as possible. And shifting into fourth, I have felt really good on this course as the weekend has gone over. And now that we have access to the softs, I know this is when things need to get real.
Yeah! That's what I'm talking about, boys. Outstanding, outstanding. Simply insane. P2, baby. Let's get it.
Sooner in shooting up the inside of Lando on the brakes early. He goes up the outside, leaves the door open, and we're just going to feather the throttle, make sure our car is alongside him, and just like that, we lead the sprint race here in China. Going to be 4th place in the sprint in China. Running a little wild on the outside line. Does not matter. Crossing the line. P4.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Now that we've had the practice, we know what we can do on this track. I think, dare I say, we could push for pole.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Alonso kind of leaving the door open. We kind of left the track there, but the door was open. We took the dive bomb, and going into the carousel, that is another position made on the opening lap. That is 3 positions up on the opening lap. Go to later on the lap, towards the end of the S's section, I caught Lawson, and watch his exit on this corner. Massive drift, Tokyo drift from Lawson there, and as cool as that looks, his rear tires are now very overheated, similar to what happened to us in the sprint, and now a lockup going into the corkscrew section. You know what I'm talking about. Heat to the handbrake, and you're into the huge braking zone. Antonelli thinks about the move on Hamilton in the inside. They're going to fight the entire way into this corner, compromise both of their exits. We're going to stick to the inside, patience on the throttle, pin it, overtake open, and that is a double overtake in a Williams over Mercedes and Ferrari. 100% clean. I mean, what are they doing? Hamilton's going to bite back on us with the DRS that we do not have access to, but that was still a double overtake into what is still going to gain us 1 position on track. Antonelli going absolutely banana monkeys on the inside. No idea what he thought he was doing. Lawson's going to shred that gap down, but it's managed. We know what's going on here. Cutting that middle corner in the end in an attempt to nurse it home, but all that matters is P6.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
Yes, you will indeed see us in Parc Ferme. Hello everyone, CD Racing here. Welcome back to episode 3 of our F125 playthrough. Last time out at the Chinese Grand Prix, we had quite the banger of a weekend, grabbing our first points in F1 with P4 in the sprint and P6 in the main race. So heading into Japan, I was riding quite high with hopes of our virtual career, but this weekend, let's just say a few things happened that reminded me why they call it sim racing. No matter how deep your immersion runs, sometimes the game or life reminds you it's still just code. I won't spoil anything, but let's jump right into it. All right, the Japanese Grand Prix. Now, coming here after the Chinese Grand Prix, not specifically because of the track, but just after the weekend that transpired, confidence is at an all-time high here in the team, especially for me, even going into a track that I notoriously am below mid on. And that is not a joke. I know I could consider myself an above average sim racer, but Japan, man, that Sector 1S section gets me every time. It's hard to get down well. It's even harder to get it down consistently well. So going into this first practice session, I know regardless of the practice programs that are given to me, I need to focus on this S section or this entire weekend's going to fall apart. So practice 1, very important here, but let's get a quick look over, a layover of what we've got loading into the weekend, and then we can go from there. So we're going to go ahead and check the current layout of the weekend as usual. Not a sprint weekend, so we're back to regular programming. Track layout of the circuit, and here's the kicker. All 3 of our development upgrades have failed. Every single one of them. These guys are 0 for 3 from the line like Shaq got brave. And my lord, is this not the time to be doing this? We just came off a fantastic weekend, and now already kind of starting off on a low note. 0 for 3 on upgrades. It's a huge waste of time. We are basically just waiting for nothing. And now, even more than before, we really got to lock in for FP1. So let's see how it goes.
And welcome to a track loved by the drivers and fans alike. A place where so many champions have been crowned. Let's get practice started then here in Japan.
All right, so first time in the car here in Japan, and we're going to go look over the practice programs ready to us, and these are the ones that we'd love to see. Track acclimatization, race strategy, and qualifying pace, in my opinion, are by far the best programs you can get. Track acclimatization is great. If you're not 100% used to the track, or, you know, the car is ever changing over the course of the seasons, it's nice to just get used to what you're working with going into that weekend. Race pace, super useful because the mechanics won't overfuel you or give you some stupid strategy during the race because they think that you're going to burn through tires faster than you actually do. In fact, I am by no means a tire whisperer, but even if I do the race strategy practice program, if I do decent, they will give me significantly better strategies because I feel like the AI and a lot of F1 games thinks that you just melt through tires, and they'll give you a two-stop at any given opportunity, and that will just kill your race. But the race strategy program, the AI does a pretty good job of calculating exactly what's going to happen to your car over the course of the weekend. And then qualifying pace, it's always good to get a little estimate of where you stand. Sometimes the predicted outcome is way off. Sometimes it'll say, we think you're going to qualify 17th, and then you get second, China. And it's really just a great way, again, to get ready for the weekend ahead. I mean, that's what practice is for, right? So, you know, in the background right now, we've layered over me tuning the car this weekend. Please don't think that I'm some sort of tuning guru. I look up every single one of these tunes on a fantastic website called racinggames.gg, and they will give you pretty much any tune you could think of for a lot of different racing games. I primarily use it only for the F1 games because tuning in these games is very complex, and I really don't have the time to actually spend an hour in practice figuring out all this stuff. So start with a baseline tune. Only focus on your driving, makes it a lot easier. And if you guys want to copy this tune, it worked pretty well for me when I actually got to drive, but we'll see what I'm talking about right now. Let's get out on track.
There'll be a lack of rubber out on track, so take it easy for the first couple of laps.
All right. Always get excited to drive this track, even though I'm not the best at it, because it is a very famous track for a reason. When you get it right, it feels like a roller coaster, and it is the only figure 8 circuit on the grid. If you don't know what that means, there is a part of the track that crosses underneath another part of the track. It's not really complicated. It's just kind of cool. And if you really haven't seen Suzuka before, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a couple corners. But here is that sector 1 I was talking about. And again, getting right into the fact that this is sim racing. Leaving the pits, my wheel was not calibrated at all. I don't know if you guys saw how little steering input was going there as I turned the car, but that was maximum angle on my end. So restarting the practice session, confirming that my tune's saved, we can leave the garage again and actually drive this time. So let's go ahead and go there right now. All right, take 2, leaving the pits. Let's go after this first lap. Let a little bit of time pass in the practice session. As you can see, we're actually not the first people out of track, and testing it, it's calibrated this time. I really threw it in there to make sure that it was, and you saw me kind of snap to the right-hand side of the track there. But now we are calibrated. Now we are driving, and first time out of the pits, let's get used to the car. Same car mechanically as last weekend, obviously with a different tune. But we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, and we're just going to try and navigate that over the course of this lap. And again, if you've never seen Suzuka before, very complicated track at first. This entire first section is just a complicated series of left to right and left to right with different angles each time. And then right here, that corner can be taken much faster once you finally get used to it. And then powering out of this corner at the bottom of the hill. Traction on the exit there is definitely a big issue. And then coming into this long hairpin right there, got to hit the brakes earlier than you'd think. You actually want to start tapping them as the corner straightens out. If you wait until the corner is completely straight to start braking, you will send it into the sand every time. So being extremely cautious of that. This back section right here, you don't want to drift all the way out to the left like I did, but you do want to use all the track. Brake a little bit before the 50, and this section is difficult. Ideally, you actually want to swing all the way out to the right-hand side there so that you can get a late apex and not understeer in the corner exactly like I did. But it's our first lap out here. We kind of forgot that that was a thing. And I believe this is new. They took away the DRS zone right here. I could have sworn there used to be a DRS zone here, and over the course of the race especially, it became very apparent. I think we were maxed out, literally maxed out due to our aerodynamic restrictions at about 191 miles an hour without DRS or ERS. And yes, that is me not only missing what I thought was the right pit entry, I actually took the wrong pit entry in the first place. I took the old one that was way further up the road instead of the one right next to the pit entry. So that was one of the first laps of all time. Like I said, I am not the greatest at this track, but we know what we need to learn. That we're going to look over some of the practice programs, get back out on track as soon as possible, and just try to learn as much as we can, because obviously we need to learn. All right, so flying lap about to start much later in the practice session now. We are going to take on the track acclimatization program. As you can see, we currently have the 5th fastest lap. Take that with a grain of salt. The AI never really goes full send in FP1, much like the real drivers, but I want to learn as much as I can. As you see, I go in way too hot on that final little chicane there. That one is a little bit difficult to get 100% right, like most of these tracks, but over track acclimatization, we're literally going to see in front of us exactly where we're weak. So going into Sector 1, you hit the brakes in the curve and not in the straight line, which is already quite rare to how you usually drive these Formula 1 cars. And that turn 1 situation or sector, not ideal. I am trying to stay in the gates, which isn't always 100% on the racing line. Sometimes I feel like this program does kind of throw you off a little bit. You really do focus more on hitting the gates and just driving the track as fast as possible, which can throw you off, but it sets a fantastic baseline for where you should be on the track and the speeds you should be around as you go. So still a fantastic program. As you can see, going a little deep on the outside there, just straight up grinding the rail on the exit there. But we are still purple through that sector. So basically just mentally thinking, all right, just because we purple sector there, well, that was obviously not the fastest way to take that. That's what I'm talking about, that this program could throw you off just a little bit. Worried more about hitting the gates and being 100% on the best line. But it shows you that through the middle of the track, we are A-okay. And now in the sector that I told you about earlier, where you really want to hit that late apex, that's where we start to fall off. That final corner right there and the first S's section are going to consistently be our weaknesses throughout the weekend. But now we know this for sure. Going through 130R, pedal to the metal, very minor adjustment. You're going so fast, you just barely turn those wheels, and then hard on the brakes. Right before the 100-meter board is ideally where you want to be hitting the brakes there. Again, sending it a little late there because I was just a tad late, but getting good speed out of the chicane, hitting that thing right there, and that is a solid opening lap of this practice program. So now going for attempt 2, we know Section 1 or Sector 1 is by far our weakest link. Going to try and hit a little bit better, and this time not red sectoring it, so off to a good start. Not purple, but an improvement is an improvement. And this actually, S's section right here, I learned over time that I really don't want to hit the brakes at all. Maybe right here, just a quick blip so we can downshift into 4th and then power out early. But for the first half of that S's section, you can really get away with just engine braking, one downshift, and then don't get on the gas too early for that sector right there. Again, this will not disallow us to get purple sectors on these corners, which is why I say that this program is misleading. You want to be fast the entire time. Just because I hit those gates, me going into the grass right there, it definitely lost me at least a second on this lap, which is a huge, huge kicker, especially if we were in qualifying. But over the course of the middle sector, again, pretty consistent here, just trying not to use too much of the track and driving wide. But this right here is exactly why I told you that this weekend reminded us that we are in sim racing. I did not have an aneurysm mid-lap there. A apartment maintenance worker straight up walked into my house at this point of recording. I am not exaggerating. They have keys. I had my headset on as noise canceling. I didn't hear him knocking. I do feel bad, but he assumed no one was home, opened the door, and I turned to my left to just see a man standing there staring at me. So I obviously stopped driving and had to determine in the moment, am I about to fight for my life, or is this just a funny coincidence? And luckily it was the latter. But I felt bad just hopping right back in the sim in case he had any questions or needed to know where something is, because it's my apartment. So went ahead and let FP1 play out in the background, thinking, oh well, just a little bit less practice, can't really hurt that bad. We'll be in shape for the race. Things happen. But things really do happen once you negate practice on a circuit you're already pretty bad at. So let's see how the rest of the weekend unfolds.
And if today's practice is anything to go by, we're in for an exceptional weekend of Formula One.
And looking at the results of FP1, not bad. We were by far and away the fastest hard tire runners, my lord. And Sainz, P2. I know it's only FP1, but still, that's quite the result from him, considering he's been a little lackluster. I know we're only 2 races in so far, but we've got a lot to do. Let's see how we go for the rest of the weekend. And skipping significantly further into the weekend, This was not intentional. Loading into the race now because we'll call this part 3 of getting real-world reality checked this recording session. The qualifying recording, OBS just ate it up. I have no idea what happened. It does not exist on my computer. I've checked everything. I have no idea where it went. So, loading into the race, sorry that you missed qualifying, but Crofty will let us know where we qualified in the beginning of the race. And going into it, we did our laps. We got as acclimated to this track as we could with a limited time, just checking over a couple things, but there's nothing left but to do it. I'll see you there.
Welcome along then to the magnificent Suzuka International Circuit, a stone's throw away from Issa Bay in the beautiful Japanese countryside. What surprises lie in wait for us today at the Japanese Grand Prix? 18 corners make up a lap of the incredible figure-of-8 Suzuka circuit, with 10 to the right and 8 to the left, for a distance of 3.6 miles. Average lap speeds around here are fairly quick. If it stays dry, then expect somewhere in the region of 136 miles per hour. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Tsunoda, Piastri, Charles Leclerc, and Hamilton. Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Ocon, and Lance Stroll. Gasly, Bortoletto, Liam Lawson, Doohan, Hadjar, Hülkenberg, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and George Russell. Davies and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
All right, so P19, that is truthful. That is not after a penalty. That is just after an absolute scrub fest of a qualifying session. Now, headcanon-wise, we're a rookie in a Williams. This is our first major mistake. So, you know, it could be worse. But just, like I said, absolute scrub fest in qualifying. First lap, just couldn't put anything solid together. A lot of wheel spin. I felt the pressure. Going into the second flying lap, I again felt the pressure, and going into the very hard braking zone at the end of 130R, just completely missed my braking point, absolutely sent it through the chicane, ended up losing like 3 seconds, which was worse than our first lap. We remained P19. So we know we've got quite the mountain to climb, but after last race, seeing how many positions we were able to gain, especially in a 2-stop race, if we get lucky with some safety cars here, this weekend can come back to us very quickly. And we are not one to give up. So let's see what we can do over the course of the race. If we can manage to climb our way back into the points, that would be exceptional. It would take something significantly unfortunate to stop us and kill our momentum going into the race. But enough talking. Let's do the damn thing. I'll see you at the start. All right, as the lights creep up, P19, quite the mountain to climb. Somehow 2 Mercedes in front of me, and no idea what happened there in qualifying, but a fantastic start from us, absolutely sending it past both Mercedes right off the rip there, and going into turn 1, already in a pretty decent position. Now, Russell already takes that position back on the inside, and Antonelli has shown a couple times that he's not real scared to take the inside line, but it does not matter because that is actually Oliver Behrman not paying attention there. That's my bad, but no positions gained on the start yet until we finally shut the door on Behrman right there. Now, he is still far from a confirmed overtake, but 1 overtake on the opening lap. It's the first step towards quite the ladder that we have to climb if we want to score points this weekend. Now, going to the first braking zone for this high-speed corner, I was nervous when everyone was going to hit the brakes. You see very close, able to collect it before I just absolutely destroyed Russell's rear end. Pause. Going into this hairpin right here, huge dive bomb on the inside of George Russell manages to get me another position. He did not expect me to send it right there. I think this is strictly a lap 1 AI thing for most of the F1 games. They do not defend against overtakes lap 1. I know when you play these games, especially if you're trying to practice or improve your racecraft, you want to take this as seriously as possible. You know, if I wanted to, I could just ram every single person off the track and win every race, but you want to make it realistic. But if you want to help yourself out just that little bit more, make as many moves as possible when the entire pack is still packed up in that train, and you will gain a lot more positions than you think, as long as you're smart about it. Don't dive bomb it from 100 yards back. But you see right there, going into the braking zone, thought about going on the inside of Hulkenberg. However, he slows it down in time, and I went ahead and let off the gas so he didn't just sandwich me off the chicane there. But he got a poor exit due to his compromised line, and that does end up paying off in the long run. Now, P16, at the end of lap 1, Hulkenberg's going to come right back and try to steal this position from us. We're not going to fight it too hard, try to avoid a collision. He's got that inside line, but we see now we have that space on him. As soon as that line turns white, that means that you are clear to move across the track. Once it's red, any movement towards their direction will end up in you pit maneuvering yourself, so you want to avoid that. But going into lap 2, already a little bit of a break in the pack. I believe Nico fighting with me for a little bit of that lap definitely killed his pace, whereas the rest of the pack has stayed with their own. Now we have the task of catching back up to them. Engineer coming in to tell us that we need to use more overtake. Definitely something that we can do, but early goings here, I like to save my battery earlier in the race because you want to have the battery when the opportunities finally present themselves. These first couple laps, everybody's still in the pack. The people that qualified lower than they should are still making their way through the pack, and you're kind of just biding your time until you find out where your real race is. Obviously pushing as hard as you can, and if you qualify towards the top, you're going to be 100% the entire time because you're already in the points. So right here, basically seeing how this weekend is going to unfold. Am I going to push extremely hard because the chance for points really is there? Or should I just save the car and get some driving experience? And that's the way that we have to think about this at the moment. Now, looking to potentially get an overtake on Hadjar going into 130R, more specifically the chicane at the end. He moves defensively, almost thinks about moving back inside. You see me stay on the brakes because I did not know if he was going to commit to that move. He got a little shaky under braking there, definitely a little sketchy on his end, but we continue on. Lap 3, access to the DRS now. It's going to help us because we got a super poor exit compared to him, due to us being a little scared entrance into that chicane. But catching back up, you see how useful the DRS is. Instantly right on the back of him. We're going to see maybe if we can get a wheel along the left side here going into the SS section and maybe try a little bit of a move, bowing out of it. That would have just killed both of our pace. And as you can see, as Isaac is now defending from me, the pack in front of him moving away. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you always have to prioritize your race. And these are half race distance. So 27 laps is actually only half of what the real guys are doing. But even in these half-race situations, it's a long race. 27 laps of Suzuka is nothing to scoff at. Even in a Formula 1 car, there's no point in risking your entire race and just killing your times for one overtake, especially in P15. As long as we're not falling off the pack, or I don't get a golden opportunity like that one, as you see me just absolutely sending it into that heartburn right there. Perhaps the softs already falling off towards the end of lap 3 for Hadjar. Those softs don't last long at all, and that is one more overtake behind us, and already almost 6/10 to Hadjar behind us. So getting quite the exit out from that chicane, and now again just rinse and repeat. We see Gasly and Doohan in front of us, both of the Alpines working together right there. And now our task, leave Hadjar behind, ideally catch back up to Gasly and Doohan, rinse and repeat. We know on paper we are a much faster car than the Alpines, so as long as I can find my pace and slot back in, we should be able to connect with these guys momentarily. But again, anything can happen here. Going into this corner right here, in my opinion, the sketchiest part of the whole lap. You get that braking wrong, you send it into the chicane. It's just really compromises your entire time down this back straight. So look out for that as the weekend goes on. But right now, all we have to do is try to catch up to Gasly and Doohan.
Okay, mate. Russell behind. We want to keep them behind, please. This is super critical for our strategy.
All right, so jumping back into the middle of the action, as you can see, towards the end of lap 5, Russell has cleared most of the back markers and is right behind us on his mediums, and we have, at the same time, caught up to both Alpines. So, current objective coming in from the engineer as we hopped in here, keep Russell behind us until lap 10. Definitely easier said than done, but we've got quite a few cars in front of us to perhaps stay in their DRS train, keep him behind us. We're going to see how it goes. Ideally, if I can just put a car in between us one at a time, he'll be too busy trying to pass them instead of fighting with me. But going into this back straight, less than 2/10 separating us. I go battery full charge, maybe a little bit of a cheeky fake out, making him think I'm going to go defensive into 130R. Definitely causes him to back off. I keep the overtake on hard on the brakes. How I managed to not luck up there is beyond me. Just kidding. I play with ABS turned on. I'm not a freak. But still quite the braking performance. ABS might stop you from locking up, but you can overshoot these corners quite easily, managing to get the car slowed down there. Keeping Gasly between me and Russell for all of about 13 seconds. And call coming in from our engineer for a tire change strategy. We're basically going to go plan A plus 2. Instead of pitting on lap 10, we're going to go until lap 12 and then switch to softs. And the current strategy at the moment, I guess, is start on these mediums and then go soft all the way to the end. So new call, drag these mediums out a little bit longer than you'd want to, which is not 100% ideal when your engineer calls in telling you to keep a Mercedes behind you. So we're going to see how we manage this. Again, our original strategy, keep passing all these cars that we know we're a little bit faster than, to keep the car that we know is faster than us behind us. Obviously right now, working out okay. Russell's still right behind us. He's not going to do anything stupid. He understands that this is a long race, and his race is actually with me. So he can compromise his line to get ahead of me and then fight the back markers. But if I were him, I see the pace at which I'm moving past these back markers. Our race isn't getting hurt that bad. He's probably going to remain defensive here, but that is still to be seen, as I am right behind Doohan here. Perhaps going to think about turning overtake on down this back straight for another overtake and to keep Russell at bay. We definitely are in the slipstream of Doohan with the ERS turned all the way up for just a second. Managed to get close to 200 there, all the way to the outside. Doohan keeping on the track there. Now under braking into the hairpin, getting that overtake done. I believe that is still pretty illegal. I didn't overtake him off track, but I went off track to avoid him and then overtook on the inside. I have a feeling if this were real life, there might be a little bit of a warning or even a penalty coming my way. And as you saw, a quick look behind shows Russell once again immediately disintegrate any car advantage that I have placed between us. And there is significantly more gap to Bortoleto than there was to Doohan. So the thing here now is, can I get Bortoleto into a comfortable DRS range before Russell makes the move on me? We only have 3 more laps to keep him at bay, but he is right there. And I want to touch real quick, if you talk about the consistency of my driving, I was able to get this first S section a little bit more down. I really feel, oh my lord, as soon as I start to talk about consistency on the track, turned in way too early for the high-speed corner there. Perhaps was looking at Doohan a little too much, or Bortoleto, my bad. Seeing if he was going to do something silly into the high-speed section, absolutely missed my turn and angle, shot over the curb, then into the dirt, losing us a lot of time. Now, Russell's still a second behind. Like I said in the beginning of the race, we don't have third-person replay, so I couldn't check. I threw him off by almost crashing there, but there is now almost a second gap. So, circling back to what we were talking about, perhaps the consistency in the first sector that I gained over FP2 and FP3, and more importantly in the race, the laps look a lot better, which is another reason why I'm thinking in this race, points are possible. It's lap 7, we're already P13, and I don't believe anyone has pit yet, so the chance is there. Williams has been consistently mid on our pit stops. I think we hit like a 2.8 almost every single time, which, you know, in real life is an average pit stop after the change. I know Red Bull used to hit consistent 2-second flats almost every single pit stop until Mercedes had a little bit of a whine about that, and they had the rules changed, but nowadays a 2.8 is somewhat respectable, and we're going to keep that in mind, hoping for our strategy, because Russell is still right behind us. Bortoleto right in front of us. Lawson at P11 on softs. We know he's coming in soon, so that's going to be another tire change. And I'm assuming if he's starting on softs, unless he plans on dragging those out or really dragging out a set of hard tires, we know he's on a 2-stopper as well. So keeping him as close as possible with what I'm going to assume is the far better strategy on our end. Like I said, the points are looking possible. Look how close the next couple cars are, and I think that last car would net us a point position. So we are racing for a lot here. Russell well behind us now, falling off the pace here. Perhaps Mercedes is just not ready for Suzuka this weekend, because I really thought that we were going to face much more challenge from a Mercedes behind us, but managing it okay at the moment. Now, still riding along here behind Bortoleto. We are just going to try our absolute hardest to catch up with him. As I've been talking, you see the gap just slowly coming down, and now going towards the back straight into 130R. Significantly less gap, significantly more battery than last time. I'm assuming we are in prime position for an overtake into the hard braking zone at the end of 130R. Let's see exactly how this plays out. Battery on the entire time, hit 200 miles an hour, come into this kink right here, go along the inside. Bortoleto refusing to play defensive until he does. We get the switchback on the right side, turn and try to avoid contact. He's going to park his car right in the middle. We're going to try for the better exit, but he, again, takes that pretty well defensively, blocking us the entire way there. Now, avoiding a collision, we let off the gas, and he powered out. A little bit cheeky, but a completely legal. And that is going to be quite the task for us to handle. As we pass, I believe that was just Leclerc that we passed going into the pits right there, netting us another position, now P12. Now that's at a true position. As soon as we pit, Leclerc is going to soar right past us again. But right behind Bortoleto now, again through the SS section. I want to highlight how hard it is to follow cars this closely. You know, Formula One cars produce a lot of downforce. If you see me taking different lines or maybe seeming more inconsistent whenever we're behind cars like this, the car in front is dispersing so much air that we basically lose a significant chunk of that aero advantage. As you see me leaving there, that was more of a throttle issue, got in the power too early. But following these cars, especially through high-speed corners, you just have significantly less downforce, and that's something that becomes very hard to deal with at a track like Suzuka. With so many high-speed SS sections, your car is thrown off, and then by the time you get to a DRS zone, there's usually too much of a gap. So again, going into this section, the gap even further than it was last time. We're going to try and catch Bortoleto one more time down the back straight. Suboptimal exit there. We know we have Russell right behind us. We're going to go ahead and throw on this overtake button, and you see the distance to Bortoleto. It's not closing. We were not nearly close enough that lap, and we're going to hope that George doesn't go for a dive bomb here. And for some reason, Bortoleto just absolutely left the door open. Perhaps he thought we were too far back for a dive bomb there, but he does not know who I am.
Great stuff. It looked like you made easy work of that target. Let's try and keep that going right through to the end of the race.
And yes, exactly. Engineer very happy with us, keeping Russell behind and gaining ourselves another position now in P9. We're going to see if we're able to hold it here. Yeah, call coming in from the engineer. As soon as I say that, we're going to be on softs. So we're in for our first round of pit stops soon. So seeing where we stand after the first pit stop is most likely the best way to see how this race is going to work out for us. So in the pit lane now, starting lap 13, basically the end of lap 12, coming into the pit box, you see Bortoleto right behind us. We may have gotten the position, but we didn't exactly lose him. Now, battle of the pit stops. It seems they were relatively even on both of our ends. Nothing harmed, nothing gained. But the more important part is the track map there on the left-hand side. Where are we coming out after these round of pit stops? And it looks to be... Did we lose? Okay, so we did lose a position to Russell. Undercut working significantly better there. So the strategy call to extend the first stint, not ideal, but 13th place is significantly better than 19th. So our on-track pace is looking pretty strong. I'm not 100% sure who hasn't pit yet, but I'm 99% sure that everyone behind us has already pit, and we might get lucky with a couple people who have yet to pit. But P13, about midway through the race, very doable. Now, are we going to be able to get 2 sets of softs all the way to the end of this race? I don't know. And that's the call from the engineer to confirm our suspicions. Yes, this is our true position. So P13, a lot to work with. A 4-second gap to Stroll is very concerning. 1.2 seconds to Doohan behind on the slower tire. He might catch us towards the end of the stint, but these softs allow you to push so hard that I am just going to build that gap. I'm going to be 100% pace until the end of the race. I do not care. If you put me on softs, I'm pushing. So if these tires fall apart beforehand, that's miscommunication. That's a bad strategy on our end. But we're going to go ahead and push as hard as we can. And like I said, that gap, especially to the medium tire that Doohan has, already almost 2 seconds on that guy, and almost a second gained on Stroll. So, pace on the softs, feeling fantastic. I wish that could have translated to qualifying, but it definitely did not. Maybe I've gained more practice over the course of the race. I feel like no matter how much practice you get, once you're finally in the race and the adrenaline is high and it forces you to focus, I feel like that's when you become the most comfortable with the circuit. Maybe I'm washed and I'm just practicing incorrectly, but that's how it works for me. And we're going to see if we can close this gap down to Stroll. And jumping back on board, end of lap 15, as you see, close the gap we have. I believe I mentioned it earlier in the video. Aston Martin are our direct rivals in the championship this season. If we want to get P5, it looks like Aston is the team to beat. So on the same tire, I believe relatively same strategy to catch Stroll this quickly definitely bodes well for the championship. Now, in real life, is this the biggest achievement? No, y'all know who I'm racing. I don't need to say the joke that's been said a million times, but a point is a point, especially in a championship race like this. So, although neither of us are fighting for points, maybe there's a little bit of pride on the line here, because as this stint has gone on, it looks like we're all about locked into where our finishing positions are going to be. How Piastri got all the way back here, I do not know, but looking over the rest of the grid, you see way up there, I believe that's Max leading the race, of course. You see he's already about to take 130R as we are just now coming into the hairpin, basically halfway back on the track. So the top of the point scorers have already checked out, and most people are within probably, I'd say, like 10 seconds of him. There's a little gap in front of us with quite a few people racing, but I would have to clear Stroll, magically pray that Piastri doesn't just check out, and then catch that pack, and then catch a couple people. So, easier said than done, and at the moment, we should probably focus on who's in front of us. Stroll right in front of us, that's who I was focusing on at the moment. Obviously, I'm not thinking about all of this as I'm racing, but it's there a little bit in the background. I just don't act on it. And again, going wide at 130R because the AI takes it slower than I expect them, leveraging a solid right-hand side position and netting us the overtake. Now, again, is that legal? Probably not, but we don't care. And apparently, neither does Stroll. Excellent exit out of that final chicane. Nets him great speed down the backstretch. However, we still had DRS and overtake on. Going to go ahead and get our elbows out, just stick on the racing line. Stroll's forced to go on the inside. It's going to give him a worse exit. We're just going to slot in front of him into these S's sections. Now, hopefully, we don't bin it here. And now, stage 2 of the grand plan can be effective. We can somehow manage to put a solid dent into Piastri's gap in front of us. When we pit again, that's going to be the real kicker. And I am now thinking...
Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 2.8 seconds.
And there it is, 2.8 seconds to Piastri, in case we couldn't see that in the top left. Now, I'm assuming if he's on mediums, he might be going for the one-stopper, which I wish was an option for me. I guess I was so aggressive on my tires during the racing strategy test that the one stop was not an option for me. I feel like in F1 games, if they're telling you that a two-stop race is the best way to win, if you can find a way to squeeze out a one-stop, you will win every time. I don't know why that's how it works, but there have been many occasions where I feel like I'm in for a fantastic place for a finish, and then one AI person throws a one-stop out of nowhere, wins the race by 20 seconds. So Piastri might be on for the big brain mega move here, whereas I have to stop again. And speaking of stop again, if you take a look at your track map and the bottom left, you will see quite a few people diving into the pits right now. Everybody making their second round of stops, and you see the McLarens just drive on through. And I do think that for sure Piastri is on for a one-stop here. Potentially Lando. They could pull out quite the sneaky 1-2 here. But on our end, I don't know when Leclerc got behind us. He might be on a one-stop or two as he soars past us on the mediums. He is gone. Even on mediums, he caught us so quickly. So Ferrari and McLaren, definitely the teams to beat early goings this season. And we get a little bit of a note from our engineer as I tried to defend from Leclerc there. Battery very low. I definitely dumped it trying to hold him at bay. And as you can see, we're only 40% going into the beginning of the lap. So might have burnt off too much. Now, luckily, the gap to Hamilton, a little over 4 seconds. He's most likely going to catch us. These softs are starting to go off the end, and we're going to have to pit again. Whereas he is just... he's going to soar to the end on those mediums as we once again go wide in the high-speed corner, hit the entry when we turn in, and then just ride the rail all the way through that sand trap. And as much as we were talking about a gap to Hamilton, he is now directly behind us. I told you guys, this weekend had a lot of, no ups, just downs. This was just overall a bad weekend, but I'm showcasing it so that you can understand that, hey, sometimes things happen. As you saw, literally 30 seconds ago, I thought I was in a position to just coast until my pit stop, see how the race unfolds for me, and I'll be okay. And now, I'm defending myself from one of the best F1 drivers of all time because I screwed the pooch. Don't let this get to your head and be upsetting. There are 25 races this season, if I'm not mistaken. One subpar race is nothing to lose your mental and get upset about, especially when there's nothing on the line. I'm not even playing online. This is a single-player career. When things like this happen, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. In the moment, I was not practicing what I was preaching. I was very upset with me. And the driving fell off, for sure. As you see right now, pit window opens. Dive in for our second pit stops here. And this does serve as a pretty well-timed little woo-saw. And as you can see, Bortoletto's still right behind us. That was the one person that we dropped on track, and he just stayed with us the entire time, literally right behind us the entire time. But now, leaving the pit stops towards the end of the Grand Prix here, looks like we're going to exit potentially P12 here. I think Stroll might be too far back to get the jump on us. No, he's going to pass us right towards the end of the pit lane. So, P13, the 7-second gap to Lawson ahead. Now, he is on very old mediums, whereas we are on fresh softs. The last six laps of the race. Can we catch him? That is now what's in my mind. I know we have checked out from Bortoleto. We have 6 laps to catch the pack, basically. There's a gap to Stroll, and then there's a gap to Lawson, and then somehow, if we manage to pass him, those are the points. That's what we need to work for. Now, much easier said than done, but Carlos is up there, and the packs tend to drive slower. Alonso looks like he's a little bit ahead of the pack, so it's not necessarily a DRS train, but they are driving as a group. And you never know. Any one of those cars could have an engine failure. There could be some sort of huge pileup on track. When you're only a couple points away or places away from the points, anything is possible. Always push hard. So that's what's going on in my mind right now. I know realistically the chances are slim, but a chance is a chance. And 1 point, especially in a midfield battle, can make all the difference in the world here. So we're going to try and retake Stroll out on track and see how that goes. So skipping a lap there, start of lap 22, a little bit of a developing situation here. As you can see, the gap to Stroll has not really gone down that much. He's keeping consistent pace as well as Lawson's, but we've got Antonelli right behind us. He had DRS down the back straight, and he absolutely shredded that gap. Now 0.2 seconds behind us going into the SS section. I don't look behind me here, but he's right there, trust me, in case you couldn't tell from the little white arrow indicators. Antonelli and Gasly both right behind me with some of the Saubers on their heels as well. I don't know if this is particularly me being too slow for the pack and causing them to pack up, but I have quite a few cars on me running wide there in the grass, just holding my line, not panicking. Track opens up for me, get back on track. Not ideal, but not detrimental. Into the end of the high-speed section, the pressure is definitely mounting, going very wide there, back-to-back mistakes, and Antonelli can definitely capitalize on both of these, leaving the door open into the hairpin. Keen-eye individuals will notice that I was hesitant to turn in there in case Antonelli went for a crazy dive bomb, because I definitely would have. We like to send it around here. And going into 130R, Stroll pretty much out of the question at this point. Let's just defend our honor and see how long we can hold on to P13 here. We've got Antonelli right behind us. No DRS down the back straight, thankfully. Call coming into the battery charge is high, and we are going to absolutely dump that down this back straight. Antonelli closing in right behind us, and what is going to happen? No. There were 4 laps left, and thus brings us to the penultimate moment of what was already a suboptimal weekend. That was not for dramatic effect, ladies and gentlemen. My PC genuinely crashed. Now, am I going to blame this on my PC? Absolutely not. I put this thing together myself. To admit fault would mean that I can't build PCs, and that's not going to happen on camera. But EA games do tend to crash a lot. I mean, I can't even play FC24 without praying to Jesus that my thing makes it through a single game. So that's the lesson here. You know, it's sim racing. I'm sure this video wasn't the most entertaining to watch because of the lack of content. You know, no third person, no qualifying, minimum practice experience. But hey, that happens sometimes. At the end of the day, sim racing is an incredible tool, and whether you're just out to have fun without totaling a real car or grinding skills that translate to the real world, these are some of the most realistic driving experiences you can get. But at the end of the day, it's still software. Races crash, games freeze, maintenance workers walk into your house during practice. Life finds a way to life, even in the sim. But honestly, that's kind of the beauty. It's better to hit setbacks here, where the only thing on the line is your pride. Well, rather that than 17 laps deep into a real GT3 race and your engine decides to explode. Every frustrating glitch, every DNF, every random bug that you have no control over, it's just training. It's mental reps. So take it on the chin, reboot, and get back out there. My name is CD Racing. Heel toe that like and subscribe combo if you like this video, and as always, I will catch y'all in the next one.